All right, and we are live, everyone. Welcome back to the PurpleTrader Show. I will be your host for the evening. My name is The Pug, and with me is...
Andre Costa.
So today we have a wonderful interview planned. We're going to be speaking with Dr. Nick, who is a protocol leader at Factory Dao and also a blockchain and governance researcher. We have a lot of questions we want to ask him, so stay tuned for that. But before we get into that, we want to do a short recap of last week. We spoke with Bo Zhang, the head of investments at FIDE Treasury Protocol. I personally thought it was a great interview. For the first time, we went deep into the macro environment and how that related into into the crypto industry. We got some great reviews on that from everyone. But curious, Andre, on your thoughts of what you learned from Bo. Because me personally, what I learned is that we might have reached the highs of crypto, at least prices, if what he's saying is true. But I'm curious to hear what you took from that interview.
Yeah, I think in general was a nice lesson of macroeconomy and how it has influenced the crypto market. Like to see this correlation and how he spoke around those was super nice to hear from him. Something that was also interesting is when we asked it about the lack of trustable information about DAOs and how he sees the opportunity to overcome this. So, for instance, on-chain analysis, to really analyze and map over time what is going on, get risk scores. So it's so many amazing learns for crypto traders or even just people that wants to have a better overview of this ecosystem.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I want to thank again Bo for coming out to speak with us, and hopefully down the road we could bring him in again to speak more. Hopefully when the environment changes a bit and it's trending on the upward side. But why don't we get into our interview for today? We're gonna bring in Dr. Nick, and we'll have Dr. Nick speak about what he's been doing in the space. I did some research on what he's been doing, and I have my questions prepared. So I hope Dr. Nick is ready to answer. So let's bring in Dr. Nick.
Hi,
Hey,
chaps.
how are you doing today?
I'm very good, mate. Nice to see you both.
Are you
Nice to see you, Nick.
are you also located in London? I'm assuming both.
I'm not today, but normally I'm in London. Yeah, I'm up north today, in the north of England, back home for a little bit. But yeah, normally London-based. The rest of our team's scattered all over the place. We've got members in Poland, Berlin, Bali, quite decentralized. But 2 or 3 of the core team members are in London.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, Dr. Nick, why don't you give a little introduction of who you are and what projects you're working on in the space?
Sure, I'll give you the kind of cliffs. So yeah, I'm a doctor because I did physics many years ago. So I did a PhD in physics, getting towards a long time ago now, and then over a sort of 20-year academic period, moved into teaching mathematics, which is where I got into cryptography. So I was into sort of crypto before it was crypto, if you like. Then moved into a kind of governance speciality. I worked in universities for a long time, trying to organize many thousands of people, trying to get them to collaborate and work together. And in many ways, universities are a lot like decentralized organizations. No one wants to be governed, and everyone's kind of self-organizing in a sense. So I actually built a decentralized organization and an institution in about 2012, 2013. And when the DAO happened, I just completely fell in love with crypto and blockchain. I was peripherally interested in it. But when DAOs happened, I knew this is what I was going to work on forever. And so that's what we're doing. I left academia to work full-time in crypto in 2020. And for the last 2 and a bit years, we've been building DAO tools, basically. Around to start with, we were a prediction market. So we launched a prediction market called Finance.vote, which we've just got to a kind of completely decentralized state. And we did that by building our own DAO tools around it. And now we're sort of stitching all them together into a protocol called Factory Dao, where anyone will be able to come and launch a DAO without permission, set it up in any way that they want, launch a good, healthy token economy with it, and hopefully build a sustainable DAO. And that's our goal for that.
You mentioned you created a DAO at a university. That was the first thing that kind of clicked on my mind, and it got me thinking. Can you, before we get into Factory DAO, because I want to give you the time, can we just talk about that experience and what that DAO was being created for at the university? Yeah,
I mean, it was a decentralized organization. DAOs weren't a thing at that point, so we built it because, so I picked up the job as director of learning and teaching. So my job was to try and shape the whole institution's professional development on how to make teaching better. Only no one likes to be taught how to teach. And actually, when you get into the theory, it's actually no one can be taught how to teach. So we built a decentralized organization, and I sort of designed this structure, which was a kind of fractal organization. So it had these tiers of seniority, so what we would call sub-DAOs now. And yeah, basically I've been trying to build this in the digital world ever since. It worked really well. The university got better at teaching. We went up the league tables a lot. It worked. We won some prizes for it. But yeah, I saw it work with my own eyes and thought, I want to take this on the open internet. So it wasn't autonomous. That's the thing. So it was not a sovereign thing. It absolutely needed the kind of permission of power structures around it in order for it to function. Whereas if we get DAOs right, this kind of fractal, self-organizing collaboration structure can exist on the internet, and I'm pretty sure it'll change the world when it does.
That's very cool. So that's an interesting use of a DAO in universities, which can explain your how you can explain your interest in DAOs very early on. 2012. I mean, I don't even know what I learned about DAOs now, right?
Yeah, it was free Ethereum. There was only Bitcoin at that time, really. Bitcoin and shitcoins. That was about it.
So you were DAOing before even DAOs were a thing. So that's awesome. So
there's a long tradition in decentralized organizations, which a lot of the DAO people aren't very familiar with. But yeah, so decentralized orgs have been around for like millennia, right? It's just that I think they've never really been a dominant organizational strategy because they've not had the technology to make it happen. I think that's what DAOs do.
Which brings us to where I want to talk about is Factory DAO and what you're building there. Can you give us a little bit insight of the mission at Factory DAO, and like on a basic level, so people can understand what Factory DAO is?
So yeah, we're trying to build a DAO that builds DAOs, right? So it's going to be a decentralized organization, has people working for it. And you can roughly conceptualize it as like a launch pad, right? So it's a place where you'll come to if you want to launch a DAO. And we've got our own proprietary technology. So we've got a kind of selection of different applications that you need throughout the life cycle of a DAO. So we will, if you want to be a token DAO, we'll provide your token vesting and token distribution stuff with an app we've got called Bank. Then we've got a app called Launch, which is a kind of token auction system. It does like an IDO and bootstraps your liquidity on your AMM. Then we've got liquidity mining and staking tools, so you can build and manage your market. So like incentivize liquidity providers to come in. And then we've got a whole governance system. Now, I have to think that NFT governance is probably going to be the next major era of DAOs. It makes for a better, more expressive governance system. So we've also got a whole minting suite, and we're actually launching an NFT DAO today. And yeah, we anticipate that NFT DAOs are going to be big. So we've got this kind of stack of tools that goes alongside this DAO, and our goal is to launch as many DAOs as possible. Like, I want to see DAOs take over the world. We want to launch 1,000 DAOs a day. That's our mission.
Andre, why don't you, before I have a couple of questions I want to ask, but I want to give you your time to ask some questions as well. You're on. Oh, Andre, you're on mute. I just unmuted.
Okay. Nick, I'm curious to if you can tell to the public a little bit more, like, is there any specific niche that you are focusing around DAOs, like communities, creators, artists, I don't know. And I was very curious, like you mentioned, NFT DAOs is going to be a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we, especially in PurpleTrader, we discuss it a lot in terms of fungible tokens versus non-fungible tokens,
Mm-hmm.
when you should create one and another. And there seems to be a kind of confusion, especially because NFTs, they become very popular compared to other fungible tokens, and seems to be like the first way. But I'm curious to hear from you, like, first, if you can tell a little bit about like the niche, and then if you could go into when should somebody opt for a fungible token or an NFT, would be very interesting to hear.
Yeah, very good question, that one. Yeah, so we built our tools to be as expressive as possible. So we absolutely anticipate that any kind of DAO could come with us. So DeFi DAOs through to very creative DAOs. But it's probably, if we were targeting a niche as our sort of go-to-market, it's going to be in that NFT DAO, creative DAO sort of place, because we've got these tools for curation. So we can use NFTs, and we use a lot of quadratic voting, and that allows communities to kind of curate amongst themselves, and also split into sub-DAOs and build these kind of more complex governance structures. So yeah, we'll probably say NFT DAOs is our sort of target thing. Now, why and when should you launch a fungible token, or should you launch an NFT or a fungible token at the start, is a decision about really what you want to do with your DAO. I think most things will end up with a DAO, or principally a DAO at some point. Because everyone will need this kind of collaborative governance if they have a hope or desire to be decentralized, which I think will probably have to be at some point in the near future. So really, NFTs are great for identity, building culture, but also building governance system, because it allows you to do non-fungible governance. So that allows you to have identities within a DAO and move away from this purely plutocratic voting system. So fungible token systems, one coin, one vote systems, basically it ends up where about 12 wallets run everything. So you have this kind of power law distribution where this little slice of the richest people run the whole DAO, and everyone else just has a kind of dumb vote, down they call them done votes, where they're basically the votes don't impact materially the governance. Whereas in NFT governance systems, each of these people can have a budget of voting power, and it allows you to build kind of reputation systems and also dynamic memberships. So it allows you to design an organization in a much more non-financial direction, which is actually what's going to make the governance better. So as for when you should do a token, I'm sort of, one of my research areas is token economics, and I've spent a long time, years now, thinking about that. You have a token when you've got a good utility case, right? So if the token allows you to decentralize. So in some cases, you need a token or a token economy in order to be able to actually decentralize thing. It allows you to decentralize multi-sigs, for example. Then they have a use. But if there's no utility, you probably shouldn't have one. The other is that, you know, it's got to be able to capture the kind of economic bandwidth of the system that you're building, so that these things are for like capturing value. So the way I see it shaking out is NFTs will drop for governance, and fungible tokens will capture fees and capture revenue and capture the economic value of the thing. So essentially, buying a token will get you exposure to the future economic output of that system, whatever it is.
Like it, how you like for the fees, for the financial aspects, it's a fungible tokens, but for the management, it's around. And when you mean about NFT DAOs, it's more like I don't know, 10,000 NFTs, and each of those NFTs, they have a weight that they're going to be able to vote regardless how many fungible tokens they have into that. It's very interesting, very interesting. So probably what you mean is that it's probably somebody going to have both fungible and NFT. But how to and which one to start? Like, should we start first with the NFT DAOs or the fungible tokens and then move to one another?
I think NFTs are a better starting point. Sort of intuitively, I think this will play out over the next 2 to 3 years. We'll only know for sure when we've got the kind of real evidence to say this. I think it depends where you're starting. I think for something like ENS, for example, a fungible token start was a good idea because it allowed them to bootstrap $1 billion treasury overnight. And you know, if you've got an existing protocol which already has a credible fee model, then great, start with a fungible token. But if you're really ground up bootstrapping from a very early community, fungible tokens can just cause you more headaches than you need at that initial time. So fungible tokens are great for capturing economic value. If you don't have enough economic value and you don't have enough traction and throughput through your system, it's probably going to cause you more harm than good. But with an NFT, we could create a DAO between us now with one NFT each and start making collaborative decisions. So it allows you to really drag up a DAO from very small origins, I think.
Cool. You are on mute, Gio.
Dr. Nick, so going back to FactoryDAO, what have been some of your favorite DAOs that you've worked with so far that you've helped?
So we worked with Stoner Cats very early. So Stoner Cats was an NFT project that had some sort of celebrity backing. They built a kind of cartoon show, and that really got us into demonstrating our ability for the tools to kind of curate things. So they have kind of weekly votes around what they like about the characters the most, and their goal is to kind of influence the production of that cartoon. That was really cool. We're working with a consumer packaged goods product at the moment called GMGN. They're sort of minting with us today that are going to do a kind of meta DAO, which this is one of the things we're really excited about is what I call a meta DAO, where you have a kind of overarching governance system and then lots of sub DAOs, which might have very specific things. So they'll have products related to those. One of my favorite things we've done so far is do the F Berlin Hackathon vote. So we kind of turned F Berlin into a kind of mini DAO for a weekend where all the hackers voted on each other's what the best projects were, for example. And again, we really sort of demonstrated that you can, by consensus, sort what everyone thinks is a good project or a good idea. But yeah, in most cases, we've just been building ourselves around ourselves. So finance.vote is our prediction market. And that's the one we've put, countless hours into building and gone through the full full sort of joy and pain life cycle and back to joy and back to pain again thing that happens with DAOs, and that's still a sort of real passion project for us, and we're excited about that. And yeah, but essentially our goal is we had about 25 DAOs lined up, and then the market collapsed, and then everyone changed their mind about launching a DAO. So it's been a tough year, but my thinking is there's going to be a year of the DAO at some point, right? Which is like the hype moment we've had with NFTs, when you've got like basically mainstream celebrities talking about NFTs. They're on the news. News networks are launching DAOs, like all of that sort of stuff. That's going to happen sooner or later. And our goal is to have the kind of substrate and foundations and infrastructure there ready for when the world gets it. And we're going to do as best as we can helping people get it.
So one of that brings me to let me see if how I can connect both. How does the macro, you're saying you had 25 DAOs ready, lined up.
Yeah.
And then it and like the market.
All bar like 3 dropped out. Yeah.
So what is the reason why, and how is it a macro? Is it the macro environment that's affecting it?
Yeah, I mean, all DAOs start with a token genesis, right? So at some point, someone's got to do a launch, and the retail market just went entirely dead. Like we actually set up some token launches, particularly NFT mints, where people didn't mint like a single token. It was like it went truly to zero in terms of like retail interest in buying tokens. And I think that's partly because the compelling case for DAOs has not really landed with the wider community yet. But it's mostly that everyone who bought crypto for the last 18 months lost money, right? It's like, unless you were a trader, unless you sold the top, a lot of people have had a bit of a bad time, and that's going to take a fair period for us to sort of recover from that. That's why we had bear markets, right? It takes the sentiment and the sort of pain to wash out of the market, of the fact that everyone, even if you did buy crypto pre 2 years before, you still saw your net worth, your paper net worth drop by 60-70%. So it was just a very painful period through that, and that the real shock of the lunar crash, and then Celsius going under, and just the huge reflexive dump down in the market was just really hard work for everyone to deal with. We had a lot of DAOs who were interested in setting up out of Korea, and they were all in Luna. There's a lot of South Korea was involved in the Luna ecosystem and felt it really badly. And I think it's going to take a while for that whole community to come back to crypto. So basically sums up to people lost too much money. And a lot of people lost their backers. People had term sheets pulled from investors and all sorts of stuff. It's just a really tough time.
Makes sense. And I mean, as we talk about DAOs and the future of DAOs, how do you feel about what's going on with Yuga Labs and how maybe DAO is going to be affected?
Yes.
Like, what's your thoughts? Is it do they have a case for this, for what they're saying?
I mean, I have many thoughts about this. I think, look, DAOs, these are kind of disruptive technologies, right? And, crypto is, it's disrupted money with Bitcoin. It's disrupting financial services with DeFi, and DAOs disrupt the organization, like the company. And I think there's some worry and concerns from regulators that about how much this is disruptive, and there's a sense that people might want to slow it down or throttle the development of it. And I think there's some evidence of that. I think we've seen the CFTC just sue a DAO and effectively pin the liability of that DAO's activity on the governance voters, on the voters in the DAO, which I thought was extremely shocking. Actually, I thought this, it was always a long-term thought and threat of what might happen to DAOs, and it's happened a lot quicker than I thought it would. The whole Yuga Labs thing is quite interesting. I think that's different in the sense it's so big. Like they did multi-$100 million plus raises. It depends what they are going to approach them for about which sale that they did. There's some of those which are like, hey, we're just selling art, right? Then no proclamation that there's going to be DAO or anything. It's like you're not getting much after this. So the Mutants raised 90 million that they did that, and they just exited that money straight away. And that's fair play. They bought some art, and actually everyone did well out of it. So I think the slightly dubious bit was bootstrapping 8coin and then using that coin to buy into the other side mint. There's some arguments that people are expectations of profits out of that, and nevertheless, I think these are novel cases. I don't particularly think the 90-year-old laws that were pre-internet natively map to everything we're doing here, including everything that Yuga Labs has done. In terms of who is the best to fight that battle, it probably Yuga Labs, because they've got hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to defend themselves. It's probably better that it's those that crew fighting the battle than small DAOs getting into trouble with big regulators. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting time. I think it may come down to the fact that Americans might not be able to join DAOs, and that will be a real shame. But yeah, that's where it might go.
By the way, I like it the way you posed this. Thanks God that it came this topic with Yuga Labs, because they are well positioned to this, and actually the board, like a lot of respected people from the ecosystem to deal with this, and hopefully it are gonna open the precedent for others, and at least a path. Like I think that's what we are expecting.
Yes.
The path where where's the boundary that we should play and work with.
Yeah. If you go into that fight, you want A16Z and Anamaka Brands and everyone else who's behind Yuga Labs going, who's got your back, right? What I worry about is small builders being slapped with huge legal fees and not being able to defend themselves, which would be a really scary thing. And yeah, I mean, all I want to see is a flourishing, innovative ecosystem. There's obviously lots of scams and nefarious behavior in this industry that there's no two ways about it. Some degree of regulation is going to come into this space. And it's just how we get there and how we reach this synthesis between the new and the old world that's going to be the important bit, right? It's you got to hope that the industry can evolve on its own a little bit, and I personally believe that the space will evolve past what any regulations could force it into on its own, but we'll see.
Nick, now that you mentioned about this misleading information, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Like the DAOs is still it's early stage market. There's a lack of trustable information. What would be like your advices for traders to navigate into this this challenge when it comes about just purchasing DAO tokens? How they should be looking into this, which kind of information, how they should prevent this issue of lack of trustable information.
Yeah. Again, really good question. It's one of the things that we're trying to really help out with in FactoryDAO. We've just had generally pretty bad trust models when it comes to token economics, launching tokens. Quite often there's actors within a DAO or any crypto ecosystem who have the ability to essentially rug a system to zero at any time, right? So really, you shouldn't buy any tokens where that ability exists. So one of the things we're trying to do is basically lock token emission curves in at Genesis, even vest DAO treasuries. So there's no one there that holds the LP tokens, which would allow them to sort of yank the liquidity out of the AMM, or B, enough tokens to basically steal all the money out of the market anyway. As doxed or supposedly reputable people are, this is crypto. You shouldn't have to trust them. So really what you're looking for is a DAO that's set up in a way that no one can really end the game, that the trust is distributed across all the participants in the DAO. And I think largely a lot of that is that the infrastructure has not been quite ready yet to facilitate that better trust model. So really, as a trader, you're looking for who controls the tokens. It doesn't matter who they are, whether they're celebrities or well-known people or whatever. They shouldn't be able to dump the tokens into the market. You're looking for emission schedules that are locked in. People can't change their mind, or at least under DAO control. You're looking for a DAO that has some semblance of a good target and ability to bring in community members to help direct the project. So how good is their governance? What are they doing to bring in the community and involve people with them? Do they have a model for their utility on their token? If there's no rational reason for the utility to have a non-zero value, its value is probably zero. So why should the token have value? What needs to happen for that value to be accrued into the token? Does it accrue value based on the adoption of whatever it is the DAO is doing? So those kind of things are what you're looking for. Is there a sensible token economy? And are there big trust holes in the model? If it's just a multi-sig and a snapshot, whoever's on that multi-sig can end the game at any point. So there needs to be good governance around that multi-sig, and the security of people who are involved in that DAO needs to be sort of carefully scrutinized.
Awesome.
So just to add to that point, I guess what we'll end up with is an API where you'll be able to look at where every token in the DAO is, right? So from the treasury to the vested tokens, to how many team tokens that exist, to what the schedule is for them all coming out, what the exact inflation is to the token. So some of these DAOs have very aggressive inflation schedules, which is just constant down pressure on the token. And you should be able to see all that. So and be able to prove it. You can have the nicest dashboard in the world, but if it's not actually the token economy underneath, then it's just kind of smoke and mirrors, right? So it's about making all that a bit more obvious.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear this, because I think for us to see this ecosystem to grow, like trust is a very important part, and it's nice to see, because something that we have seen, it's so many new launchers of DAOs over the past year, and the experience for the trader and the holder, it's actually pretty bad. So I'm glad to hear that you are actually bringing this from the beginning, this focus on that. Super cool.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to trust anyone in crypto, right? It's like, don't trust anyone. But I think we have been largely missing the kind of the robust setup. I mean, we went through a large period of not really caring about decentralization, and we paid the price for it. And that is always going to be the case in this industry. It has to be decentralization at the top of the list. Otherwise, we're going to have another catastrophic blow up in the future. So, and that's what it was. It was centralization was the weakness. and it's all been flushed out of the system.
I
almost there.
I see. It's part of like the balance, like we were too much centralized, then we are like moving, and we have frictions, and we are gonna find a right balance for some specific applications. Maybe they should be centralized as well. Not everything should be. I think for the most, like the major information, the major system, they should be decentralized. So it's nice to see your approach as well, Giovanni. I think we are almost on.
Yeah, I wanted to be respectful of Dr. Nick's time. I do have one last question, and it comes down to let me see what I wrote. You seem very passionate about this space, and especially what you're working on is with DAOs. I'm just curious for people that are trying to get into the space, or would like some lessons learned. Like what is the biggest lessons you've learned by being in this space?
Really good question. Yeah, I mean, you've got to always be learning, in the sense that this space moves at a pace. I've worked in many disciplines, and this, like, physics is basically glacial in comparison, right? It's just like we've found a lot of how the universe works. But this is brand new greenfield technological ground, and the pace at which it operates is incredible. And there's a certain degree of having to keep up pace with it, but you also need to recognize you can't keep pace with everything. So pick an area that you think is a good area to focus on, whether it's token economics or trading or DAOs and governance or something, and become a sort of expert in that field. And really becoming an expert in this industry at this time is an incredibly valuable thing to do. I think being very mindful of hype, it works both ways. You can make a lot of money out of hype, and but it's very temporary. Hype, if something's incredibly hyped, you're generally buying the top, and it disappears overnight, and you can get left holding the bag in that sense. Don't get shilled into stuff too easily. Be very skeptical. It's better to miss the odd 50x and not get wrecked. So don't go all in is one of my top advice ever. Don't trust anyone, and do as much research as you can, and be fairly dedicated to the industry, knowing full well that it's a risky thing to do.
Great advice, Dr. Nick. I laughed at "Don't get wrecked." I think
yeah, don't go all in, or you'll get wrecked.
It's a little bit of a sting. No, thank you. Thanks for the insight, Dr. Nick. We thank you for coming on board and speaking as well. I mean, I look forward to putting all the content together. Andre, any last words you want to say?
Yeah, just again, I want to thank Nick for your participation. I know, we were introduced by Alex. I don't know how much Alex spoke about PurpleTrader, but essentially we are an exchange focused on community tokens, social tokens in general. Hopefully, we could also discuss in the future some kind of partnership. The way that we support the tokens is by bringing liquidity. We have an order book model exchange. So we decided for an order book model because the DAOs, they don't need to have a liquidity pool. So it's more efficient, especially if you are a low cap token. So that's how and we have a board with you mentioned about the metrics that you are building. So we have basically a space where we tell to the users what are like the board members, social signs, trading activity, to bring more trust into this ecosystem. So that's basically the value that we are adding to this ecosystem. So thanks again. Let's have a conversation. By the way, I'm also in London, so maybe
great. Yeah, let's
grab
a coffee and check it out. No, it sounds very valuable, and I love the focus on social tokens and community tokens. I think that's a really good target. Will be a big feature of the next cycle, I think, without a doubt.
Yeah, cool.
Well, Dr. Nick, once again, thank you, and have a good rest of the day and weekend.
Cheers.
Take
Absolute
care.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.